So a few months ago I made a video speculating about how powerful the forces under Moff Gideon's command are. And when I made that video, we were a few episodes into Season 2 of The Mandalorian. With Season 2 done and a lot more information on Moff Gideon's forces, I figured it was a good time to revisit exactly what he has under his command. I'm Colin, and this is Sci-Fi Deep Dive. Remember, if you enjoyed this video, to head down below and hit that subscribe button. It should go without saying, by the way, that if you haven't seen Season 2 of The Mandalorian, you might want to click off from this video now, because there will be spoilers. So, Moff Gideon appears to be an Imperial Warlord with a significant number of forces under his command. He's one of the main antagonists of The Mandalorian, and poses a significant threat to our main character. So last time I talked about this, I started with his fleet, and we're going to start there today. We see in the show that his flagship is, in fact, a modified Arquitens-class light cruiser, or something similar in design. Now, even if this vessel is an entirely separate class from the other Arquitens that we see in other Star Wars content, it is still significantly smaller than something like an Imperial-class Star Destroyer. Seeing that this is what he chooses to use as his command ship, I at that point assume that he probably has no Imperial-class Star Destroyers under his command. After all, being an Imperial officer, he probably has a little bit of an ego to fill, and it would make sense for him to want to use the largest ship under his command as his flagship. My assumption is that this cruiser is the largest ship under his command. It in fact might be one of only a handful. In the entirety of the show, we only see two vessels referred to as part of his fleet. This command cruiser, and a separate Gazanti-class frigate which we see shuttling supplies to and from his fleet. On top of that, I think it's notable that we never see this cruiser operating as part of a larger group. It's always operating alone. Whether it's stealing the child on Tython, or being assaulted by our heroes in the middle of deep space, it's not part of a larger battle group. It is instead basically completely alone. So that leads me to believe that his fleet might be an illusion entirely. He might really only have one cruiser under his command. Obviously one cruiser and a few supply ships, because we do see some supply ships. But as far as warships go, it really might just be this one Arquitens-class light cruiser. That being said, it is still possible that he has some other vessels that we simply didn't see on screen. Perhaps he's trying to control a large section of space and they need to be more spread out to be able to do that effectively. It is entirely possible that there are at least a few other smaller light cruisers under his command, and it would make sense that he would pick the largest, more modified one as his command ship. However, I do think it's safe to rule out things like Imperial-class Star Destroyers. When it comes to ground forces, we still don't see a ton. I speculated last time that he might have a significantly large ground force. I think it's appropriate to scale that back a little bit. Without the presence of an Imperial-class Star Destroyer, I think it's questionable whether he has large assault equipment. For example, I don't know if he has anything like AT-ATs at his disposal. We do see he has at least a few tanks and a large number of infantry. He does appear to have enough troops to hold down several bases across several planets. And while these bases do seem to still be running on kind of a skeleton crew, it is notable that he has enough troops to man, staff, and defend these locations. And it does seem like he's running a fairly large mining operation. This mining operation, in fact, seems to be one of the largest operations we see him running. We see a lot of personnel manning that facility. Not to mention the juggernaut transports being used to move supplies to and from the mines. And we also see, like I mentioned, that he has some very light ground equipment like small tanks and speeder bikes at his disposal, although a lot of it does appear to be old, fairly worn out, and in some pretty poor shape. So ultimately, my previous predictions, I would say, weren't that accurate. I might have given him a little bit more credit than I should have. But there is one wild card we have to talk about, and that's the Grand Admiral himself, Thrawn. Thrawn is mentioned in this season, and it's stated that the Magistrate is working for him. And we do see in the background in the episode The Jedi that there appears to be active production of war materials on that world. This, to me, suggests that Thrawn is back and he's building a fleet. Now, that's not news to anyone. That's been speculated basically since that episode came out. But the question becomes, how does that tie in with Moff Gideon? Is Moff Gideon a loose cannon working completely on his own, or is he working for a larger Imperial remnant, possibly being led by the Grand Admiral himself? It is clearly possible that he could be working for a higher-ranking official. However, I would say some of his experimentations with the Force and the presence of a Dark Trooper program, to me seems to suggest that he's probably working alone. Does it seem like something Thrawn would do to allow a lower-ranking commander to attempt to give himself Force powers? That seems like something that might lead to an upset in the balance of power and could in fact lead to a coup within the Imperial remnant. So my assumption at this time is that he's still not working for Thrawn, and instead functions more independently. Now, it is entirely possible that maybe Thrawn doesn't know about his Force program, but my gut instinct is to assume that they're probably not working together and they might be two separate entities entirely. In fact, my assumption is that Thrawn is coming back more for the Ahsoka series than for Mandalorian Season 3. But Moff Gideon's forces are a very interesting topic, and like I mentioned earlier, the largest asset he has under his command is his light cruiser. His light cruiser appears to be a modified Architon's class light cruiser, and if you would like to learn more about some of the differences between Moff Gideon's cruiser and the cruisers we see in other Star Wars shows like Rebels and the Clone Wars, I'll leave a link up here to my video on that. And I want you to let me know down in the comments whether you think Moff Gideon will be back in Season 3. Do you think he's going to be an active threat, or do you think he's pretty much done for? And do you think I'm right about his forces? Do you think there's more of them or less of them? Let me know down in the comments. And last but not least, if you enjoyed this video, head down below, hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell icon so you get notified when I upload new videos. So for Sci-Fi Deep Dive, I'm Colin, and I will see you next time.